Undead Nightmare is one of the best single player pieces of DLC all time and the greatest DLC in my opinion. Undead Nightmare was a cheesy, scary horror zombie film where the world of Red Dead Redemption goes mad and the dead come back to life, and John Marston must go out looking for a cure. And it features a lot of good characters from the main single player campaign. Obviously, Abigail Marston, Jack Marston, Bonnie McFarlane, Uncle as a zombie, which is the first undead John Marston encounters. Drew McFarlane, Seth, Nigel S. Dickens, and even a side quest character, the filmmaker character, I forget his name, and Landon Rickes, and including, let me just get to it, the clip, Abraham Reyes from the Rebellion, leader of the Rebellion, who we all know at the end of the main campaign turns out to be a dictator. So, Undead Nightmare is just an incredible DLC. However, there are some characters from the main single player campaign, alive or dead, I'm surprised, that didn't make an appearance in, in Undead Nightmare. And even after all the playthroughs I've done of this DLC, no matter what platform I'm on, I recently beat it on the Nintendo Switch, and I sat down and thought to myself, and I sat down to think, like, for the first time, and there are some characters that I'm really surprised that doesn't appear in Undead Nightmare. For those who don't know, Undead Nightmare takes place near the end of the main Red Dead Redemption single-player campaign, an alternate timeline. And obviously not canon with any of the Red Deads or even the Red Dead Redemption series. So, what characters am I really surprised that didn't make an appearance in Undead Nightmare? And I'm gonna go over what I saw happen to them, what happened to deceased characters' bodies after the main single player campaign, and obviously some characters that the last time we see them, they just disappear and we don't know what happens to them. So let's get into it. I'm gonna start with Louisa. For those who know, Louisa's character is a girl who's not afraid to die and fight for a better tomorrow for her country. She loves her country and she's willing to die to make history for it. And what type of role would these characters play? I forgot to mention. And honestly, Louisa is fighting for her country and she has to give up her family to protect them. Her father is killed and her sister's too young to fight, so she wants them to be safe, her family, so she tells them to leave the country, and the rest we know. And, however, Luisa's story does not have a happy ending, unfortunately. And she's supposed to be getting married to Reyes, but she doesn't find out that he is cheating on her, like in the Gates El Presidente mission, and doesn't really love her. So, what type of role she would play? And this is the last time we see her. She ends up getting killed trying to save Abraham Reyes. And what type of role she would have played? Probably just as a zombie since she's dead, and probably would have been like just encounter, John Marston would probably say something, "You poor girl," or something. When you put her down, the adjective probably would say, "Put down your old friends." So yeah, and what I think happened to her body, why she's not in it, I think she was cremated. Because Ozzy would take so much time to bury so much bodies. So I really think she was just cremated. I don't know Mexico funeral culture, how they do it, but I think she was just. Javier Square is the next one up. And this one's a pretty tricky one because there are two ways to bring Javier Square to justice. One, you kill him, or two, you hog tie him and you bring him in alive. So, what type of role would I think? However, which ending of this is canon for his story? I think it's you bring him in alive is the canon one. And how would I think of a role Javier Square would have played in Undead Nightmare? Personally, I don't see any, whether you bring him alive or dead, type of role he would have been in. Because Edgar Ross takes him either way. So, either he was sentenced to rot in a penitentiary forever, or he was given the death penalty. He was either hung or given the chair. But obviously, it would take time for him for a trial. Obviously, they would do a trial first. But how long would it take? I don't know what it was like in the Old West, like how long it took for a trial. And what I think happened to him if you bring him in, I think he was either hung and he became a zombie because of the ancient Aztec mask that's a curse and undead nightmare, which causes the whole thing. Or he was sent to a penitentiary and the outbreak broke out and he became a zombie and eventually was cured when the mask was put back. Next up, Irish. The last time we see Irish is after the boat to Mexico, the ferry to Mexico. He was never seen again, cremated. Last time we see Irish is just riding off someplace in Mexico. However, at the end of the main campaign, he accidentally kills himself. As we know, Irish is a drunk and a liar. So, what happens to Irish? I don't know what type of role he would have played in alive, but however, there is an undead that looks very similar to Irish, and that's a Retcher. So the way Irish likes to drink, I think he most likely just became infected, became a zombie, a Retcher, and if that undead is Irish, it is very similar to him, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I personally don't think it is, but I think he most likely did get bit. And the reason why I think Rockstar didn't decide to put him back in for Undead Nightmares because they couldn't get the voice actor to return. Or who knows, maybe they just don't think he would have fit. I personally don't see how he would have fit in Undead Nightmare. So yeah, that's the last time we see Irish. Just riding off and having his last words with John Marston. But yeah, there actually is a retro that looks similar. Next up, Bill Wilkinson and Dentley. I said his name wrong, but obviously this one's just a simple, easy one. They would have been zombies, and maybe it would have just been just some random zombie that you encounter and you see them. But what happened to their bodies? Ozzy takes some time for a full body to just completely be decomposed. So I don't know like how long it takes, but it would probably take some time. It would take years and years, so probably would have been just a zombie that you encounter. Or if they didn't decompose, maybe it's something, a vulture most likely ate them, like them decomposing, or just a cougar or something, bobcat. So that's all I can think of and what role they would have played in Undead Nightmare. Next up, Dutch Banderlin. And obviously, this one's an easy one. We all know Dutch Banderlin ends up committing suicide and falls down from a mountain. So, obviously, a zombie, just a random encounter. You just put him down, and that's it. And John would probably say something like angrily. Wouldn't feel bad, but obviously for Lisa, he would feel bad putting her down. You'd probably say something like, "You deserve better." But Dutch is a very easy one. And what I think happened, he most likely was just since there's cougars or bears in Undead Nightmare, and in the main thing, but before Undead Nightmare happens, the alternate timeline, he most likely was just eaten by an animal and other animals when he was decomposing, but mostly like a bear, mostly just ate. So yeah, but yeah, just as a zombie, he would have played a role as. Next up, Forham and Agent Ross, Edgar Ross. Obviously, I think they would be just in Blackwater. And how would they play a role? I think it would just probably be like they would find John and say, "We kind of figured you would survive," and I feel like this would have been a perfect time for John to just get revenge. And I just don't think they would have played a major role. But we don't know what happens to them during Undead Nightmare. Did they get bit? Or are they locked up somewhere? Like, or did they go someplace else? Like, we don't know, and we'll never know. Plus, I can't think of much how they would have played a role. Maybe Edgar Ross would have wanted to just shoot John after seeing him, after talking. So yeah, I can't think of anything. But what do you guys think? Those are all the main Red Dead Redemption characters from the main campaign that I'm really surprised after playing Undead Nightmare on the Switch. That I'm really surprised after I sat down and thought that didn't appear. How do you think some of these characters would have played a role in Undead Nightmare if they would have been in? And do you think it would have been good to have these characters in, or do you think Undead Nightmare is just fine the way it was? When it's probably best just to have it as a mystery. And there are some characters as side quest characters that appear more besides the filmmaker, which I forgot to mention. Captain DeSanta appears. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think any of these characters would have played a role, or what do you think happened to them? I would love to read your comments.